So the story continues with Jacob and his drama, and I never realized just how exciting and drama-filled the Bible is, but really there's a lot of action and drama going on. So let's read what happens with Jacob. So Genesis 31 is titled Jacob flees from Laban. And verses 1 and 2. Laban's attitude towards Jacob changed, and Laban's son said that Jacob took everything from Laban, and God instructed Laban to go back to Canaan. And now, if you remember, Laban and Jacob had an agreement that, Jacob would have all of the sheep with the speckled with dots on it, and whatever else, didn't have speckled on it, sheep, it would be Laban's. And if Laban were to find any sheep that didn't have speckles on it, then he can consider him cheating and lying. And Jacob stuck to that. Just like Jacob stuck to everything Laban agreed to so far. And Laban always finds a loophole and a way to change his mind. And so it says Laban's son, they probably saw, Jacob has a lot of stuff. And they ran and they told their dad. Verses 4 through 9. Jacob explained to Rachel and Leah how their father cheated him for years despite working hard. And I'm sure Rachel and Leah saw that for themselves. Verses 10 through 13. Jacob told them about a dream that he had where God saw all that Laban did and instructed Jacob to leave for Canaan. I kept making a mistake in writing Bethel, but to Canaan. And I wrote, sometimes we're in a situation where it's just time to go. Sometimes we're in situations where we're really comfortable, whether it is a job that you're really comfortable in and God's opening up another opportunity for you to go, or, moving somewhere, or even if it's not something tangible, but a mindset. It's sometimes we have to let go of old mindsets. It's time to go. It's time to move on. And that's where Jacob is right now. Don't ever stay in a place that God hasn't instructed you to stay, because I promise you, you will not be fulfilled and you will not be happy. So Jacob was told by God that it's time to go. And verses 19 through 21 was so interesting, because after Jacob got this vision and confirmation from God, Rachel and Jacob decided to take it upon themselves. Well, first of all, Jacob just left in verses 19 through 21. He didn't say that he was leaving. And the word said that Jacob deceived Laban by not saying that he was leaving, and Rachel stole her father's household gods. And I wrote, why did they leave this way if God blessed their journey? And that's what I kind of asked myself, because I feel like if it was something that wasn't wrong of them to do, then the Bible wouldn't have worded it with those words, right? It wouldn't have said deceived or stole. So here, Jacob again, and I can't judge Jacob. I'm just like Jacob. I make the same mistakes over and over and over. And we see that with Jacob, and in our own lives, that's what we have to examine too. What are we constantly repeating over and over? It's time for us to change. So verse 22, it took 3 days for Laban to notice that Jacob even left. So Jacob had a lot of stuff. So I'm guessing that, and remember back in, I think, Genesis 29, Jacob moved his animals away and had his sons tend for his animals and his flock away from Laban. So it must have been a decent distance if it took 3 days for Laban to even notice that Jacob had left. Verses 23 through 24. Laban got so mad that he caught up to Jacob in 7 days. Now Jacob was 3 days ahead of Laban, and he still caught up. And God told Laban in a dream to say nothing to Jacob. And I thought it was interesting that Laban did the exact opposite. He opened up his mouth and he started talking, but that's okay. So verses 25 through 30, you can tell that, Laban, although he had a fear of God, he didn't prioritize God in his life. Because you can see Rachel stole her father's household gods, whatever that means, things that he idolized and worshipped more than the real, true, and living God. And, God told him, say nothing to Jacob. Laban didn't respect that. He immediately confronted Jacob. As the word said, don't say anything good or bad. Verse 31. Laban searched for the god that was taken. So he said to Jacob, why did you steal my household god? And Jacob said, go ahead, search my stuff. You can kill the person who took it. And that made me realize that Rachel took it without even Jacob knowing. So Rachel, Jacob's one true love, even went behind Jacob's back and stole something. She probably knew that if she told Jacob, he would tell her, don't take anything that was his, leave it. But for whatever reason, Rachel decided to do that. Verse 35. Rachel, this is just more deception. Being the slick person that she is, she hid the God in the camel that she sat on. And she told her father, I'm on my period. I can't get up. And I honestly laughed at that because she has learned definitely from Laban, because he manipulates situations, he lies, he deceives, but also somewhat Jacob. Now Jacob is righteous in the eyes of the Lord, and he does have a fear of God, but he has made a few bumps along the road as far as deception goes, and I feel like that repetition of deception continues with her lying that, she is on her period and she couldn't stand up, when in actuality she was just sitting on the thing that she stole from Laban. Verses 36 through 42, it ends in a more peaceful note. Jacob was angry and he confessed all the wrong that Laban did. So I can imagine that Jacob kind of just exploded. Imagine if somebody's doing something wrong to you for years and then you finally get the chance to say how you feel. How are you going to say it? I know I wouldn't be super nice about it. And then Jacob didn't recognize that it was God that protected him. He did recognize that it was God that protected him throughout the years. So it was good that Jacob did give acknowledgement to God. Verses 43 through 55. Laban and Jacob make a covenant that they will not pass in each other's territory. So they made a pillar and a covenant that, you stay on your side, I'll stay on my side, and we will have peace. And I think that there's so much value in peace and having peace. It said that Jacob fed them, and the next day Laban left in peace. And if you could think about their prior encounter, they were angry. They were probably yelling at each other. It probably wasn't the most pleasant thing to watch. They were probably fighting, not physically, but, verbally. And Jacob still saw the importance of making peace with his father-in-law, and he fed them. Not only did he feed them, but he kept them overnight. He took care of them and then sent them on their way. And I just wanted to journal to myself, there's value in having peaceful relationships, especially when it comes to the people in your family. Think about when there's tension with somebody else, especially when you live with that person, or, maybe if you don't live with them, but they're in your family. That's not a good mindset to be in. If you have someone difficult in your life, so if it's difficult to be in peace with someone that you don't live with, so say you have, an aunt, and every time you talk to her, it's hard to just be peaceful, then limit interactions with that person. Learn how you can communicate with them in a healthy way that you can still have, healthy communications with them, but maybe you don't have to talk to them all the time if they are constantly behaving in a way that disrupts peace. So that's why I put have healthy boundaries with people. And I did a whole series on making peace, confronting someone if there's an issue, building better relationships. There's a whole series on that. Check it out if you have any questions or issues in relation to that. But it was good for me to just see that and journal it. I did not think that this chapter was going to end so peacefully, but that just shows you the spiritual maturity of Jacob as well. He was able to look past everything that Laban did and patch it up, and now there's peace in that family, which is amazing. So that's it for Genesis 31. Next week we'll be reading Genesis 32. Thank you so much for sitting and studying the Bible with me today. I look forward to sitting with you again, and I'll talk to you next time.